Hi everybody, Nicole here. I hope you are excited to do a bake-off. So we are doing this bake-off to support Move Momentum for their amazing, successful so far crowdfunding campaign. They are really trying so hard to secure money to keep their classes going. So please help me by creating and whipping up a storm in the kitchen to create an awesome cake to enter. Today what we're going to do is we're going to bake a simple vanilla sponge cake. I'm going to build mine as I'm going to do it today for my design. However you want to do yours is entirely up to you. And they are very excited to get all the entries in, see how creative you can get, change things up. You can change flavors, add in different things, get excited with your toppings and the design, and that's the biggest part of this bake-off. What we'll do is, as I'm going through, I will write up all the ingredients and they'll pop up on the screen too. You'll have a list before of what you need. I'm going to be baking my sponges gluten-free because I'm celiac. However, just follow the normal design structure with the bake-off, and I will tell you then how you can substitute in if you are baking for a gluten-free cake or if you're going to bake for a dairy-free cake. So follow along with me. You can obviously pause, rewind, fast forward, however many times you want, but enjoy. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start off first of all with our 250 grams of butter. My butter has been out getting nice and soft, so it's not too hard to get nice and beaten in. So the first thing we're going to do is get your 250 grams of butter in your main bowl. You can do this with a hand whisk or a wooden spoon or a spatula. I'm going to use an electric mixer today. Here we go. Okay, so what I've done is I've literally just given my butter a nice quick little soften together before I add in my next ingredient. My next ingredient is going to be my sugar. So I'm going to pop my main bowl back on the scales. If you already have your ingredients weighed out, that's absolutely fine. However, this is how I like to do my weighing. So I'm able to put my main bowl on my scale because of just the design. However, not everyone's scales will work this way. So the next ingredient we're going to add in is our caster sugar. Caster sugar we are doing 250 grams of again. So it's a very simple recipe. So I'm going to add that in and then we will get it mixed in again with our whisk or our blender, whatever you're using to combine. Try and be super specific. There we go, 250 grams on the dot. Excellent. Going to pull that off the weighing scales and get it mixed in. Excellent. Okay, so remember I am speeding through my baking because this is a recipe that I use really often. It's my go-to, so don't worry if you're not as quick as I am. Just pause the video, catch up to where you need to be. Do not worry. So butter and caster sugar are in. Here we go, and this is what it currently looks like. It kind of looks like scrambled eggs. So it's nice and combined. There's no big lumps of sugar or butter in there. And it's ready to go for our next ingredient. So our next ingredient is going to be starting to add in some of the wet. So that's going to be our vanilla extract. I love a little bit of vanilla in my baking. So I'm going to be using 1 teaspoon for that. If you don't have a measure teaspoon, just use a general teaspoon. One from your drawer, that will work as well. Okay, so you can do 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Make sure it's a nice generous teaspoon. And get that in there. Well done. Sometimes they can be quite sticky, so it's like quite syrupy, so you want to make sure you get it all in there. Tap it in on the side if you want. Excellent. So you are going to be needing to use a teaspoon again, so if you're using one of these, you might want to give it a quick wash and dry. This should be where I put in my cued music, of like my hold music on the phone. Okay, so that's going to be just ready to go for later on. I like to wash as I go. It's kind of how I work in the kitchen. So we've popped in our vanilla. Now we're going to start adding in our eggs. Before we start adding in each egg, we are just going to give another quick little whiz. Okay? Boom, nice and easy. So that's all ready and mixed. So vanilla, butter and caster sugar in the main bowl, ready to go. Next thing, eggs. So for this recipe, you're going to have 4 eggs. They're medium to large. It doesn't really matter. Once they're not teeny tiny eggs, you'll be fine. So you're going to get the whole egg in. How I like to do my eggs is I put 2 in, give it a whisk, and then go in for the final 2. Okay, so you don't need to worry about any separation. Just crack your whole egg in. Make sure there's no shells in there. It's the most important part. Okay. If you're not confident about getting your eggs and cracking them in without getting any shell, what I would suggest is just do them before and pop them in a little bowl. So then that way, if any shells do accidentally fall in, you can fish them out. And the top tip to fish out eggs is to actually get one of your shell halves and to use that, because if you're trying to do it with your fingers, you'll be spending a long time. Okay? So I'm just going to give these 2 eggs a quick whisk in. So 2 in, it's starting to look a little bit more wet, kind of not really combining all together. It might be having some separation and looking a little bit more like cottage cheese. Don't worry. Do not worry at all. Not for now anyway. Okay, so now I've got all 4 eggs in. Lovely. I'm going to get these all combined. Okay, bakers, so we've got butter, caster sugar, vanilla extract and 4 eggs in our main bowl. It's looking quite nice and liquidy now. It depends on your butter and the fat content in your butter of how it's currently going to look. But in here you'll start to see that it looks a little bit funny. It looks like it's separating. Don't worry, because until we start getting in our flour and baking powder, it's going to look a bit crazy. So don't panic just yet if it looks a bit strange or separating, or now it might look like the cottage cheese or scrambled eggs. It's okay. Next step, we're going to do 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So if you used that teaspoon earlier, want to get it nice and clean and dry. Just 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We're going to sprinkle that on in there. I'm putting in another ingredient, but you don't need to do this unless you are doing a gluten-free bake. I'm doing a gluten-free bake because I'm celiac. So it means I can't have normal flour and things like that. So I put in a product called xanthan gum. Xanthan gum just helps the cake to rise and also not break apart, because gluten-free bakes can be really bad because they don't have that consistency. But don't worry about putting that in if you're doing a normal bake. Okay, so you can just give that a quick little combine with a mixer or your spoon. Okay, so before the last 2 ingredients that go into our cake, now is the time where I would get my spatula, and I will get my spatula, and just scrape all the way around the bowl and at the bottom to make sure all of the ingredients that are already in there are ready and combined together. So I'm going to get my trusty spatula, prep like a boss. I do like to prepare. So I'm just now going to put my camera down so you can see what I'm up to. Okay, so I'm just going to literally take my spatula around so I can get everything gathered. So we're not going to be missing out on exciting cake batter. Just give that all a little combine. It's really nice and fluffy now. It still might look a little bit funny and not massively smooth, but don't worry, that is just the eggs and the butter. Okay, so I'm just going to scrape this all down to make sure I'm not losing out on any of my lovely cake batter. before I put in my final 2 ingredients. Okay, so final 2 ingredients are the flour and milk. Okay, so the milk we have is the very last thing, and the reason why we do it the very last is just in case it doesn't, your mix is wet enough and it doesn't need it. So we don't put it in before, just in case. So again, I'm putting my main bowl back on my weighing scales because this is how I like to do my measuring as I go. However, you can already have it in the side in a bowl or in a main one. Now, my gluten-free flour is very thin and fine, so I don't put this through a sieve. If you want to put your flour through a sieve before, please do. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to measure in my, let's turn off, 250 grams of flour. It's not quite a nice recipe. 250 grams of everything, if this wants to play ball. Excellent. So that's my flour in. Pop my scales to the side. All done with that for now. And slowly I'm going to get my mixer in, because otherwise I'm going to have a giant flour cloud in my kitchen and it will go everywhere. So what I like to do is either use a spatula or a spoon to give it a little mix around, or this is my other little trick. I get my mixer in here and I just gently, without turning it on, move it around slowly so that the mixture starts to combine, but I don't have a giant flour cloud when I put the electric on. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my mixer on. The most important thing when you're making a cake is not to overbeat it. Okay, so you only want to beat it a little bit till it's combined, and then you don't need to worry. Here we go. We have a flour cloud. Not too bad though. Okay, so I literally mean a quick beat together. So my mixture is looking really nice and smooth. Okay, now I know that I need to put all of my milk in for my recipe to help with the moisture of the gluten-free. You might only need 2 of your tablespoons of milk, but I'm going to put in all 4. I would suggest you do a couple of tablespoons at a time and see how your mixture is looking. So I'm going to go straight in and put all of my 4 tablespoons of milk, which I already have aside in a bowl, in, and then give those a mix together. Quick little mix. And there we're done. So again, I'm going to get my spatula. I'm going to get all the sides in and down, make sure that all of my mix is nicely combined. So there we have a really nice smooth mix, and oh my gosh, it smells delicious. So there we go, a nice smooth vanilla cake mix. Okay everyone, so cake mix made, we are ready to get them into cake tins. Now you might not want to be doing it in a cake tin, you might want to do muffins, cupcakes, however you like, it's totally up to you. The design will work of the cake mix for cupcakes, muffins, cakes, absolutely whatever you want. Today I'm going to be using a nice little square tin, just changing things up a little bit. Because I'm doing 2 layers of cake as my sponge, they should be more than sufficient for cake tins, up to about 10, maybe at a push 12-inch cake tin. However, it'll probably make about 24 muffins, maybe 36 cupcakes. Okay, so it's entirely up to you. It's a nice big batch for your cake. So this will make me nice 2 generous sandwich layers for my cake, which I'm then going to ice and design later on. That's the next stage. So because I'm doing 2 layers and I quite like everything to be nice and even, I'm going to weigh mine out. So I've already weighed my cake mix in a separate bowl, as you might see from my one earlier, and it's 1,040 grams, so it's quite a big cake mix. So I'm going to split that evenly into 2. I've only got one of my lovely square cake tins, so I normally use it for fudge and brownies and things. So I'm going to bake obviously 1 layer at a time, because that's what I can do with 1 tin. I can't magic 2 out of 1. So I'm just going to put my tin on and even out my ingredients. However, if you've got your 2 sandwich tins, just even them out as you see from the eye normally, and that's no problem at all. I'm just weighing mine out because that's what I fancy to do. It's entirely up to you of how you do yours. So I'm just weighing mine here. See if I can get 520 on the dot. It's a bit of a challenge when you've got a nice wet mixture. Ooh, can I do it? Nearly. 518, 519. Hey, 520. Okay, so that's half of my mixture going into my cake tin. I'm going to just pop the other one to the side. I'm now just going to, I'll tilt my camera down and show you how I just spread around my cake mixture. So I have lined my cake tin with some parchment paper, because this one isn't an easy spring foam or anything like that. So I've done an nice and easy, simple, not too fussy, pop it in and get ready. I'm going to use my spatula now just to spread it out to the corners, so that my cake has a fair chance of coming out in a square shape. We can hope anyway. Okay. Fabulous. So it's measured out. What I always do is, I don't know why I do this. I think I do it in theory that it might help any air bubbles or anything. I just give it a little bit of a wiggle and bang on the counter a few times. And then I'm going to pop it in the oven. So, oven temperatures. I've got a fan oven. I put my cake in at 180 degrees. If you have a gas oven, that should be gas mark 6. I did my Googling. It normally takes about 18 to 20 minutes. Every oven is entirely different. Every oven of every house I've ever lived in has been different. My oven in this house is really quick. So sometimes my bakes, depending on how long the oven's been on, can take 15 minutes. It's madness. So the best thing to do is keep an eye on your cake visually if you can see through your oven. Most ovens have glass panels, so you can see in, and look from the outside. Don't open your oven. As soon as you open an oven door, you're going to drop the temperature of the oven, and it's going to take some time to get back up again, which means then your cakes will be uneven, they might not cook for long, then they'll be dry on the outside, wet on the inside, all sorts of madness. So the best thing to do, pop it in the oven at the correct temperature, check on it visually after about 12 to 14 minutes. If it looks like it's nice and risen and it's getting golden brown, great. If it's starting to go dark brown, okay, it's probably up too high, or your oven is cooking really, really fast. So you want it to be nice and golden brown. The best thing to do to check that your cake is cooked is to use a cocktail stick, a knife, and I've got a little cake tester. Got it as a gift a few years ago because I love baking, and it's basically just a little metal probe, and I pop that in. If it comes out clean with nothing on it, I know my cake is done. If it's got some crumbs or some cake batter, it's not cooked yet, it needs time to return to the oven. If you are taking it out of the oven and you're not too sure if it's done or not, take it out and get the oven door closed as soon as you can. Of course you need to get yourself some nice oven mitts or anything. I've got my rainbow mitts here for getting my things out of the oven. Oven mitts, tea towels, something heavy so you don't burn your hands, because of course your tins are going to pipe up hot. So I'm going to get this in the oven now. It's been preheating for 10 minutes. I know that that's sufficient for my oven. However, you'll all know your own ovens. Hopefully some ovens might take 20 minutes, half an hour to preheat. Everyone's different. So I'm going to get this on now and then set my timer. Okay, oh, good time. It's actually on the hour. So I've got my cake mix in there now. First one in, as soon as that's done, I'll take it out, let it cool for a few seconds before I take it out of the tin and pop it on a little wire rack that I've got. And leave it on there for a little while before I then take it out of the parchment paper. Once both of those are done, I will leave them to the side, let them cool completely before you do any decoration on cakes. You want them to be entirely cooled, because otherwise you're going to have runny icing and your decorations are going to start to slip and slide, and it's just crazy. So completely cooled cakes is the easiest way to decorate and the most successful. So I am now going to start on buttercream icing. So for my cake today, I'm going to layer in the middle a nice even layer of yummy buttercream icing. I'm actually going to do orange icing today, and I will then cover my cake as well in the buttercream icing, and then I will do my decorations. And that's the exciting part, is everyone can do their own funky cool decorations for this bake-off, and I'm very excited to see who's got amazing decorations. And normally if I'm decorating a cake, I like to write it out and do a little picture so I can see what my design's going to look like, but I'm not going to show you mine, because then you'll get a sneak peek. So you can wait until the final design to see my cake. So it's up to you if you'd like to do that. If you like getting creative and drawing and writing out descriptions and things, you can. If not, you can just wing it and just go as you're doing it when it's time to design and decorate the cake. Okay, so I'm going to get my ingredients now for our buttercream icing, and then we'll get going on that. Okay everyone, so I've just taken my first cake out of the oven, so I'm just going to show you what it should look like and the colour, and then also how to do the test to make sure your cake is cooked. So it's nice and golden brown, it's nice and returning back. When I press on it, the sponge returns back up so it doesn't sink down, so I know that the sponge is nice and consistent. I'm going to pop my little cake tester in, pop it in, and come out nice and clean. So I know that my cake is now ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this on my wired cool rack, as I have here. I'm going to leave it to the side. I normally wait about 5 minutes before I take it out of the tin with the parchment paper and leave it out, and then another 5-10 minutes before I take it out of the parchment paper, so we don't want it to sweat too much. And that'll be how our cakes will be ready and then cool before we decorate. Okay, so time for our buttercream icing. So 3 really simple ingredients, sometimes 4, but I'll explain that in a moment, for your buttercream icing. We've got butter, icing sugar, and a flavouring if you like. You can also add in a little bit of milk if you want your icing to be thinner, or you can also add in the colour. So it's entirely up to you. That's the optional 4th ingredient if you wish. But the 3 standard: butter, icing sugar, and a flavour. I'm going to be doing some orange icing today because I thought vanilla and orange would be quite nice. Change it up, and it will also work with my design. So I'm going to get my, first of all, ingredients: 150 grams of butter. That's already here, ready in my fresh bowl, and it's been out softening up a little bit to make my life easier. So just as we did before earlier on, we're just going to give that a quick little whisk or a mix around, and so it's ready to go to add in the next ingredient. Done. Okay, so I have 300 grams of icing sugar that go into my buttercream icing. The reason why I have 300 grams is I've literally tried and tested this over the years. Too much can make it really too sugary and not enjoyable, and too little then just doesn't give it enough taste. So I find 300 grams works quite well. However, if you want to add more or less, you decide. Taste as you go with a clean finger. So I'm going to add in 100 grams, then give it a mix, another 100, give it a mix, and then the final 100, give it a mix. I always put in my essence at the very end. So I'm going to add in my first 100 grams of icing sugar and then give it a mix through. Okay. Same as I said earlier with the flour situation, you can have real clouds. So if you want, you can get your mixer and just give it a quick little hand swizzle around to get the first combination going before you turn on the electric if you're using the electric. so I've done my first 100 grams of icing sugar in there. It's looking quite nice and thick. Sometimes it depends on if my butter is hard or softened, and it might be quite lumpy. Don't worry if that's the case, because the more we blend it, the easier it will be and the smoother it's going to get. My trick for buttercream icing is really giving it lots of beating to make it nice and light and fluffy and airy. So I'm going to go for my next 100 grams. You can put all 300 in at the same time if you like. However, for me, I don't like having a big icing sugar cloud, so I prefer to do it this way. Everyone's different, you can choose as you like. Starting to get nice and thick now. At this point, because I've added 2/3, you might want to give it a nice little taste and see how it's going. It's quite nice, but I know I want more icing sugar. So, I'm going to get in my final 100 and then add in my flavour and then my colour. Again, if you want, you can use your sieve, if you have one, to put your icing sugar through. I don't like to use a sieve because I'm using my electric mixer normally with my buttercream to get it nice and airy, so it beats out all of the lumps. If you're hand mixing it, a sieve might be easier for you. Okay, so all done with the weighing scales now. So I'm going to get this final portion mixed in. Okay, so at this point now would be where I add in my essence. So I'm going to be going in, I'm going to be using my orange extract today, essence, as I said. I've got my teaspoon measurement, so I'm going to use 1 teaspoon, nice and generous. Same as earlier, might be quite thick. This isn't as thick as the vanilla, so just pop this in. So you're now adding a liquid into this buttercream. The reason why I add it at the end after having mixed my butter and icing sugar is because then I can start to see what kind of consistency I want. Okay, so I'll give it a nice little mix. Oh my goodness me, the smell is divine. Okay, so I'm all good. Everything is mixed in here and it's looking as I would like. I'm happy with my mix today. I don't want to add in any milk because I'm going to be adding in a little bit of food colouring in a moment. So I don't want to make it any thinner. I'm happy with this consistency. It's nice and thick. If I put it on my finger, it's not going to fall off. Nice and yummy. Oh my goodness me, I love orange. So my buttercream is ready. I'm not going to dare put this on my cakes until my cake is entirely cooled. However, what I am going to do is pop in my food colouring. So I'm going to put my food colouring in a moment, but I'm not going to show you because it's a surprise until the final design. So what I'll do is I'll put my buttercream in the fridge just to leave it nice and ready so it doesn't melt. If it's a nice hot day, your buttercream might melt, so you want to put it in a cool place, out of direct sunlight, or pop it in a fridge. You can cover it over if you like to make sure it doesn't get tainted by any other foods in the fridge if you're popping it in there. Once my cakes are all cooled and ready, I will then start to build my design. I will show you how I'm going to do that later on. Once my cakes are done and out of the oven, because I've got still one in there. But that is how to make a super easy buttercream icing. If you're doing any food colouring, use, and every food colouring is going to be different. So check the instructions on the pack or the bottle or the tube. It might say 1 drop, it might say half a teaspoon, whatever it might be. For me, I just need 1 drop of my food colouring to go in. So I'll be popping that in and mixing it up again and then getting it ready for my building later on. So the next part of the video will be building my cake and the final design. Well done so far. Great work. Okay, so it's time to ice and decorate. So everything is ready here. I've waited, this video is a few hours later, of course. I've waited for my cakes to fully cool so they're all nice and ready. I've got all of my items here, which I'm going to be using. I've got some buttercream icing. Now you can see my colour. I've gone for a nice pastel orange. I've got a couple of balls of royal icing. I've gone for white and black. You might know why. Colours of momentum. And then I've also got a little star cutter that I'm going to use. I've got my trusty old spatula, which I use for icing, and I've also got a knife for helping cut it out to some shapes that I can't have a cutter for. I've also got icing sugar and a rolling pin, because that's what I'll be using when I'm rolling out any fondant. That's perfect. Only if you're using fondant will you need to know that, but I'll show you how I'll do it and do a quick tutorial. What I'll do is I'm going to build my cake now. If you don't want to watch, you don't have to. You can skip on towards the end. However, if you want to see how to ice cakes or to roll out icing for shapes and different things, then please do. Okay, so I'm going to get my cake buttercreamed up first. I'm going to use this one on the bottom. So I'm going to go straight onto my cake stand, which I'm going to put my cake on. I'm going to use this one on the bottom. Okay. Little bits on the side, I normally just have a little quick pull off. Okay, so I've got my nice buttercream icing. It has been in the fridge chilling, which is nice and helpful. So I'm going to use my cake spatula, and then essentially what I'm going to do is put a dollop in the middle, or two, and then I'm going to work my way out. Okay, so I'm putting my icing there in the middle, and I'm literally taking my spatula and moving it out. Amazing. So this is going to be sandwiched between two layers. Sometimes people will just make a one layer cake, which is totally fine. If that's the case, you might want to nice and evenly move from side to side to get a nice little finish on top. It's more like a little wave. Or you might want to just try and keep getting it nice and smooth. So you've got more of a smooth surface like this. Entirely up to you. I'm going to be sandwiching my cakes, so I'm not worried too much about having this perfect, because it's going to be a nice chunky layer of icing in the middle of the two cake sponges. Okay, so that's my rough and ready layer there. I'm now going to put my top layer of my cake on. So my cake is fully cooled. It's been sat on the rack. I've flipped it over, of course, with clean hands a couple of hours in, so each side gets nice and fully cooled. I'm just going to pop that straight on there. If your cake is a good consistency, it shouldn't fall apart when you pick it up and hold it. It should be good. So I've got my nice firm cake, looks like a big sandwich. It is a cake sandwich. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate the top and also put some icing around on the sides. So same as again as before, I'm going to get my icing straight in the middle. And then I'll be pulling it down. I'm going to save a little bit in the bowl for the sides later. Okay. So the more you move the icing, it will melt and it will warm up with the friction and everything. So if you want to work fast, you can. However, don't worry if it does start to soften too much, it will be okay. So I'm excited to see what colours you guys have gone for. Maybe you've just gone with the natural colour of the icing. It'll normally be kind of yellowy if you haven't put any colour in and you've just used a general kind of butter. Okay, so I've roughly gone around the top. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start icing on the side. So I find the best way to do this is put a bit of a dollop in the middle and then move it around. So that's what I'm going to show you here. I take a little dollop, put it in the middle, and then I move it down and up. And then it starts to cover in the surface and then also evens out those two layers that we have. Okay, so you can see there it's starting to mint. Okay, it does take a lot of just kind of going back over it, back and forth, getting it nice and perfect. If you don't want it to be nice and perfect, then you can just go rough and ready and go around. this side, and then we'll have more or less a fully covered buttercream cake. Obviously, this is nice and quick and easy. If I was wanting to make my cake absolutely beautiful and smooth and pretty, what I would do is I would do a rough coat like this. I'd return it to the fridge, and then I would do another layer over of fresh buttercream over it to make it all nice and smooth. However, I am just going for a nice even coat. All the icing on there. Okay. So on top, I'm just going to do a nice little wave like I showed you earlier, going from side to side with my palette knife. And that is a nice iced cake. So nice and rough and ready. Yes, you can see the cake through some parts of it. That's purely because I haven't gone crazy with putting too many layers on, but that's just nice and easy. Now what I'm going to do is decorate on top. So important to cover your surface with some icing sugar and also your hands, because you're going to be using your hands to manipulate. I'm going to start off with some white. I'm going to make some nice little white stars to go around my centerpiece. So I'm just going to pop that down. I've already given it a nice little move around my hands to warm it up a bit. Pop it down, give it a quick roll. If you don't have a rolling pin at home, you can use a roll of cling film. That works quite well as a makeshift rolling pin, or a plastic tumbler. Don't use glass in case it's shattered. Okay, so the reason why I've got a chopping board is here because I don't want to chop and press things down metal on the surface, so I don't want to scratch my countertop. So I do that on a chopping board, which is nice and clean and ready. So I normally like to roll out my icing, so it's about half a centimetre, so it's not too thin, not too thick. Then what I do is I just move over to my chopping board. I've got this all nice and ready, and get my little duster, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a swizzle around in the icing sugar, and then I press it down, give it a move about to get my shapes, and press in the middle. There we have one star. So I'm just going to make a little collection of stars, because they're going to go around my cake. Okay, so I'm now cutting out my main logo for the middle of my cake. Okay, I am just free handing it here, but you can use a template if you have. You can draw out a design, cut around it, anything you wish. I'm just going freestyle here on mine in hope that it will look okay. Do the Move Momentum logo justice. I think it's looking all right. Okay, not bad. So I've now got all my bits and pieces. I'm going to pop them on my cake because I've only recently just made up that buttercream. It will be nice and soft still for my royal icing decorations to stick on, and then it will be good to go. So I'm going to get these pressed on, and then I'll show you how to pretty them up to make them all look nice at the end, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm literally just layering it on, softly pressing it in. Excellent. Now I'm going to add in my stars. going to do these around the side. Excellent. Okay. So, icing sugar makes a royal mess. But never mind, that's for later to sort out. Okay, so my cake is nearly done. My hands can wash. What I'm going to do next is just give the final finishing touch. Make sure it's all looking good. So here we have it, my Move Momentum cake. I don't want it to slide off. I think it's looking not too bad for a morning's work. What I'm going to use here is just a little pastry brush, which is great for dusting off the icing sugar from icing. What you can also do, if you don't have a little pastry brush or a clean paintbrush, you can just get your finger and a little bit of water, and that will just help remove the icing sugar from the main part. I'm just going to fix that. So just like this with a little water, and it will just kind of help dissolve the fresh icing sugar into it. And then you should be good to go. So there we have it. This is my bake-off cake. I cannot wait to see what you can create. Looking forward to all of the entries. I hope you've really enjoyed baking with me, and best of luck. See you soon.